If a manufacturer were to try and create the best all-round portable gaming laptop going, they'd be in for a really difficult challenge. You see, they need to make sure it's lightweight, that it has great battery life, that it's comfortable to use in non-gaming situations, it needs a good keyboard, it has to still look the part, and then at the end of the day, it still needs to play games like a bat out of hell. And if one laptop is going to come close to being the all-round best portable gaming laptop going, it's probably this, the ASUS ROG Zephyrus G15. And we're going to take a deep dive look at this thing today. Before we do, guys, I can see the stats. Only 1% of you are subscribed. So if you end up liking today's video, remember to give the like button a tickle and smash the subscribe button as well. It lets me know that you like the kind of content that I'm producing. So let's get into the meat of it. So if it's going to be the best portable laptop, it of course needs to be light. And this thing's not bad, about 1.9 kilos, about the same weight as the Razer Blade 15 gaming laptop and not significantly heavier than general purpose productivity laptops that you can buy in the market right now. In terms of design, it really looks the part. I love the white finish all over it. Just looks super clean and super crisp. We've still got the ROG Zephyrus kind of prismatic back to the reverse side of the display, which is cool. There's no RGB puke here. Some of you will dislike that. Personally, I quite like it. Build quality, absolutely excellent. It feels strong, it feels robust. It feels like you could put it in your bag and lug it around for days at a time and not worry about it. The key design feature to call out from a gaming perspective is when you open the screen into an upright position, the hinge is manufactured in such a way that it actually lifts the base of the laptop off the table slightly, giving that little bit extra airflow for the underside of the device. If it's going to be the best portable gaming laptop, it needs to have good battery life. And ASUS have proven quite definitively, unlike some manufacturers, that gaming laptops don't need to have poor battery life. This thing's incredible. 7.5, 8 hours doing reasonably casual, low intensity productivity work. It just kept going. It's arguably the biggest tick in the box as far as that portability front goes, particularly if you don't want to lug around the reasonably large 200-watt charging brick. On the screen and the display, it's a Quad HD or 1440p display, which is a halfway house between 1080p and 4K. It's definitely the sweet spot, both for productivity type work, be it video editing, casual web browsing, you name it. It gives you more real estate to work with. And it's definitely the sweet spot on a 15-inch device for gaming as well, particularly with AAA titles. It just gives you that little bit extra immersion. It's got a 165 Hz refresh rate with a 3 millisecond response time. That 165 Hz refresh rate at 1440p is definitely all you're going to need. The display isn't perfect though. For me, it's a 16:9 rather than a 16:10. I would much prefer to see a 16:10 because that would make this thing not just the king of gaming laptops, but actually it would probably be one of the better just all-round productivity laptops you could get your hands on. It's also got a fairly disappointing around 300 nits of peak brightness. For the most part, most people will probably live with it, should be fine. If you work in brightly lit conditions or you intend to play games or do productivity work in brightly lit conditions anyway, you might find yourself struggling a little bit. It's also got a fairly disappointing around 77% coverage of the DCI-P3 color gamut. In fact, I actually used this laptop to edit my last video, and the minute I brought the footage onto the drive and booted it up into Premiere Pro, it was actually immediately evident to me that the colors just looked a bit washed out, a bit overexposed. If you are going to be using this laptop for long-term or long periods of time of productivity work and typing away, you can have no complaints with this keyboard at all. Keys have nice low travel, they're sharp, they're snappy, comfortable to use, got up to speed nice and quickly. Best keyboard I've used on a gaming laptop. The keyboard is backlit, no RGB, as I said earlier. If you happen to be sat upright at a table, the backlighting looks quite good. I find if you've got this thing on your couch or in a slightly more reclined position, you can see quite clearly under the keys and you get this weird kind of lighting effect from the LEDs. Doesn't look particularly great, so not the best backlighting solution. That being said, we do get a few other handy little features on the deck of the keyboard as well. We have a power button which doubles up as a fingerprint sensor as well, which works with a cached mode in terms of remembering your fingerprint from a cold start, pulling you straight through the Windows Hello authentication software and into Windows 10. We've also got a few handy dedicated buttons at the top end of the keyboard, volume down, volume up, muting the microphone, and a button which gets you direct access to ASUS's ROG Armory Crate, which is the software which controls the performance of this device. There's a few presets out of the box, a silent mode, performance mode, and a turbo mode, and they all do what they say on the tin. The fans, they do ramp up. They are distracting at the end of the day. It is a gaming laptop though, and you wouldn't be buying a gaming laptop if fan noise was your primary concern. The trackpad is another area about why this is potentially the best portable gaming laptop you can buy. It's pretty damn large for a 15-inch device. Other laptop manufacturers kill the size of their trackpads knowing you're going to be using a gaming mouse, or they deliver a kind of a poor quality one that doesn't feel particularly responsive or intuitive. This one, absolutely fine, absolutely great. In fact, really like it. Speakers, absolutely brilliant. We've got them on the left and right side of the device. They're front facing, so you don't lose any sound to the underside of the table. At this stage of the video, I would normally complain about the poor quality 720p webcam inside the laptop, but there is no webcam. Now, I do complain about 720p webcams. They're all poor, but they're still better than having no webcam option at all, particularly in this pandemic or post-pandemic world that we're now entering into. They will continue to be useful to the vast majority of users. Now let's talk about ports and the I/O. And actually, you know what? It's really, really good. So on the left side of the device, we have the barrel connector for the charging brick. We have a full-size HDMI port, full-blown Ethernet jack, so you can get the best latency you possibly can when you're gaming, full-size Type A USB port, and 2 USB-C ports. Note, they're not Thunderbolt. I don't really think that's a big deal with the kind of the sheer amount of other ports you've got available on this laptop, and obviously an Ethernet cable if you do want high transfer data speeds. And then on the right hand side of the device, we have ourselves a micro SD card reader, and we've got another USB Type A port as well, so you won't be left complaining about the I/O available on this device. It's time to sound the benchmark klaxons and get into the good stuff. Let's just quickly talk about the specs though. It's a Ryzen 9 32 gigabytes of RAM, so you'll never be left complaining. It's got an NVIDIA 3080 80-watt GPU, so not the most powerful 3080 that's available on the market, and it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this low wattage 3080 compares to the higher wattage 3070s that I've tested recently in both the Razer Blade 15 and in the Alienware M15R4. Single core performance is as good as any other 11th gen Intel chip I've used, but in terms of multi-core is where it reigns supreme. It trounces the nearest gaming laptop that I've used in the Alienware M15R4 by 35% and is so powerful, even with this laptop's limitations in terms of cooling, it massively outperforms my 3700X Ryzen desktop CPU as well. It's not quite the same margin of victory in the GeekBench CPU Benchmark, but it still has a healthy lead over the competition nonetheless. If we look at more practical benchmark in the form of Puge Bench, which tests real-world performance using Adobe Premiere Pro, that advantage that it had over the desktop 3700X doesn't persist into this real-world scenario though, but it's still significantly better than the nearest equivalent gaming laptop I've used. And they've not skimped on the SSD performance either, with this being the best SSD I've ever encountered in a laptop. Now, in a sign of things to come, we are going to see that just because this is a 3080 doesn't mean it's going to reign supreme over the other 3070 laptops I've tested before. And we can see that here in the GeekBench graphics benchmark. This 30-watt 3080 effectively matches the 95-watt 3070 in the Razer Blade, but the 125-watt GPU in the 3070 Alienware definitely beats them all. Moving into 3D Mark TimeSpy, we still see the Alienware doing well, but it's a role reversal this time between the Blade and the Zephyrus G15. Now, this laptop's got a 1440p display, which is great for AAA titles, but I know a lot of you guys out there are going to want to downscale that to 1080p so you can get the most possible frame rates, particularly if you want to plug this into an external display with a higher refresh rate. So we've done the only obvious thing, and we've benchmarked both resolutions. Let's see how it looks. So starting with 1080p, and a case in point that a 3080 doesn't automatically mean it's going to be a 3070, the G15 doesn't get near the Alienware, but certainly manages to match that 95-watt GPU in the Razer Blade. In Deus Ex though, the G15 performs surprisingly poorly, to the point where I even ran it 2 or 3 times just to make sure I was getting the same results, and it was consistent. In Cyberpunk, with ray tracing disabled, there was nothing to pick between absolutely any of them, and then when we actually enabled ray tracing, the G15 actually came on top, albeit all were largely within the margin of error. Meanwhile, in The Witcher, it once again doesn't rival the Alienware M15R4, bumping the resolution back up to 1440p. In Overwatch, in this instance, the higher TDP 3070s beat the 3080 in this G15. In Deus Ex, averages remained pretty consistent this time. Back to Cyberpunk, ray tracing on at 1440p. Everything just evens out across the board. And then finally, in The Witcher 3, it's the same or similar scenario to what we encountered in the 1080p test, but this 3080 in the G15 managing to beat out that 95 watt 3070 in the Razer Blade 15. And there you have it, guys. Whilst the 80 watt 3080 in here may not be as powerful as that high wattage 3070 in the Alienware, this thing's a darn sight more portable, it's a darn sight more practical. It's lightweight, its battery life is incredible, its keyboard is brilliant to use, and it's got so much power under the hood for productivity type work, courtesy of that Ryzen 5900HS. It ticks basically every single box, and it is why I think it's the best all-round portable gaming laptop you can buy right now. And that's it for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, remember to hit that like button. I'd massively appreciate it if you like my content to hit the subscribe button. It lets the algorithm know. And I will, of course, see you in the next video.